Scorpio moons. Scorpio moons have deep emotions tied to different situations in their life that they've been in, you know, where one person might, be easily to get over something, this person is not. They invested time and energy into people, and these people hurt them. They are very, devastated by it. They might not show it, but like sometimes they do. And when they do, they can sometimes be, a little bit more, violent, frustrated, angry at themselves or those people that they did wrong or that did them wrong. It depends on the situation. you know, for them, they like the, deeper, things, somebody that understands what they not understands, but gets them and wants to do for them, wants to be around them and wants to fuel what they have going on. They don't want somebody to just be there for like 5 seconds and then leave. They want somebody who can stick around and be there, for them through, bad times and good times. You know, I need to know that you can be with me through the bad times. And like, this is not just for, this is for their close friends and, close partners, people they want to be together with, you know. But when those people ain't like that, then they get emotional and they're like, I should maybe cut myself off from you. Maybe I should get away, or maybe I'll lash out because we did spend a lot of time together, but now you're kind of, doing different things, shit that I wasn't aware of, or, why are you doing this now when we've been, you know, doing things this way? I don't like that, that type of deal. Deep desires towards, their ends, whatever, deeper emotions, the deepest emotions, you know, can be very negative, but also can be, positive depending on the individual. You know, they might hate other people because, they just won't get it, what they have been through in their life, what drives them. Things ain't always easy. People, look down on people for whatever reason. You know, they had to come from, nothing, and, they've seen, traumatic shit, all kind of stuff. These people tend to focus more on that side of things, but not always because they want to be negative people. No, no, no. But to like remind themselves that, I'm looking for somebody who's also been through that, and then together we can, move forward in that kind of toxic, but like not so toxic to them because they found meaningful bonds in that type of thing. you know, or I'm looking to not do that. I'm looking to find somebody who's, more, you know, will just be there for me. They will not fucking, run around and do this. And even if they do that, I still know that they'll, have my back when it comes time and everything else. They'll at least be there for me, whereas other people won't. I hate that shit when they, do that. You want to ditch me for other people. You know, these people can be very, jealous of you for that, you know, when they get emotional. At the same time, they, might, not see that they might act that way themselves too sometimes. Sometimes they are the ones doing the, belligerent acts, the, deceptive acts to other people. And like those bad things happen to them because they did those things to other people. And they didn't think that, things could, come back on them in a negative way. But either way, this person does know about the darker sides of life, or like wants to explore that with other people, or just be around, or just be with people who are, you know, understanding and, have, desire to be around them. Like, I want to keep you with me. It can be healthy, but it can also be unhealthy too, depending on the situation and stuff. But these people also have the innate ability to see in other people, like, oh, this person just saying stuff. I can tell that they kind of, didn't have a hard kind of lifestyle, or they didn't have a rough upbringing, you know. I know what that, feels like, because these people can actually feel that stuff, you know, when talking to people, just like talking to anyone, but I'm not even like that, but I know there's people like that, and they can just sit there and listen and be like, well, damn, there's not a lot of depth here. I'll probably just go somewhere else. Nothing against you, but I don't fuck with it that much. You know, this, sign is, goes through a lot in life, but like, because of that, they become wise, and they also learn how to, you know, push forward themselves. They have a lot of power and drive towards what they want to get, what they want to, accomplish. And some people do see that, some people don't, but they don't necessarily care. They do when it's like somebody that they themselves care about, right? And then that person that care about, don't he calls to them, don't acknowledge, certain things about them that they have been through. Then they get very emotional, and that can, ruin things. But it's also a positive when they can understand other people's pain and then like help them move forward as well. And then like in that, they could, be kind of like a teacher, but like not even a teacher, but like just a good friend to have by your side and shit. Scorpio moons. I knew somebody who was like that. But be cool on the corner. Scorpio moons, toxicity is there. I ain't gonna lie. But like, you gotta turn that into a positive. You gotta convert that into, positive energy. And you can do that. But be cool on the corner.